Gentlemen, the time has come once again to discuss things.
Go ahead and get started?
Yeah.
Okay. Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Geeky Gentlemen. I am Sid Partu. Joining me today is the Comics Kid 2099. Hello.
Hey, how you doing?
Pretty good, pretty good. So we're here today to do another episode of Geeky Gentlemen, and Ruben picked our review topic today. So Ruben, what are we reviewing?
This is the 1989 movie The Burbs, starring Tom Hanks and Carrie Fisher.
Yep, that is exactly what it is. It is a movie. It came out in 1989, I'm sorry, and it has those people in it.
And you had never seen this before, right?
No, I'd never seen this before, but you said something last time when you announced it that I gotta hear you repeat right now.
I said it's my favorite movie.
It is, huh?
So you didn't like this, I take it?
No.
Oh, wow.
Like, it's not, like, bad or anything. It's just, like, this is the exact kind of movie I picture putting on in the background and having paid no attention to.
Huh. Wow.
Like, I have no idea what about this makes it your favorite movie.
Okay. Well, that's interesting. I guess we can get into it. I don't know how to explain why it's my favorite movie. I think it's a very underappreciated movie, I think, because anytime I try to tell anyone about this movie, people usually just, like, have no idea what I'm talking about. First of all, I have to enunciate every time I'm talking about it, because when I tell someone about this movie, they think I'm talking about The Birds by Alfred Hitchcock. And I'm like, no, Burbs, like suburbs. I think that the story is just uniquely quirky. A lot of the dialogue, I think, is, like, really funny in a very, like, low-key kind of way. I don't know, like, I grew up watching this movie, and I probably, if I had waited until my late 20s to watch it for the first time, I might not have liked it. It might be a kind of movie that you have to kind of have seen from an earlier age to really like it, but I don't remember a time in my life where I hadn't seen this before. But I think it's really funny, and, like, we were talking about dark humor versus offensive humor last week, and I don't think this has any offensive humor, but I think this is, like, filled with dark humor, and I think a lot of it is just really funny. So I don't know. I find it interesting that you say this is a movie to just put in the background, because I don't think that it's a bland movie.
Dude, like, I chuckled 2 or 3 times.
Okay.
And that's the biggest reaction got out of me, is I chuckled 2 or 3 times.
And it could be that you and I just have extremely different tastes, because you also like Monty Python and the Holy Grail, and I chuckled maybe 2 or 3 times with Monty Python and the Holy Grail. And so, like, it could just be that you and I have very different tastes in comedy.
That's fair. I do really like some absurdist-ass comedy, and this has elements of that, but I don't know, like, what was the moment where the dude's climbing the telephone pole, and the military guy's there, and he's like, so why aren't you climbing the pole? And he's like, it's very high.
Yeah.
Like, that was pretty funny, but I'm just like, that's what, an hour into the movie or more. I was sitting there watching the first half hour of this, and I was falling asleep, so I paused it, went and took an hour-long nap, and came back. And I was thinking, okay, maybe now that I'm refreshed, I'll find more of the humor funny. It's not like I forgot anything. No, it just wasn't that entertaining to me. I thought it was pretty boring. like you say, Carrie Fisher stars in this. She feels like a glorified extra to me.
Yeah.
She's got like nothing to do.
That's true. She's playing the straight man. Well, Tom Hanks is playing the straight man to the other characters, Bruce Dern and Rick Dukeman. Tom Hanks is playing the straight man to them, and then she is playing the straight man to Tom Hanks, who's kind of more insane than she is, but not as insane as the other two guys. And so that's like playing a straight man in anything is a thankless job anyway, because you can't show off your comedic talents, and we know that she's capable of humor. So like that's already something that she's got a very difficult role here. But it's even more difficult because, like I said, she's kind of the straight man twice over, because she's having to be that while Tom Hanks is also having to be that.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Like, it's a difficult role to play, but... And it's not that she does a bad job of it, I just don't think it's a well-written part. Like, all the ridiculousness she's having to deal with, I feel like she should be getting more frustrated by than she is. Mm-hmm. And it's just not there in the writing. There's one funny moment from her is, for me, when Tom Hanks crawls into the ambulance and she's like, "Hey honey, I'm gonna figure out what hospital they're taking me to and follow along." That's the only part, like, only thing she did or said that made me laugh as, like, the straight reaction to the absurd situation. Mm-hmm. No, this movie was like I'm sitting here, and I don't usually do this, but I don't think we're going to be able to get an hour out of this. So we're going to go for as long as we go for. Okay. But like, I straight don't have much to say. So you're kind of in charge of carrying the conversation and taking us in different directions, sir.
Okay. Well, like I say, I mean, it's one of my favorite movies, and like it's hard to explain what about it I do like, other than like I think it's really quirky, and like this is just my type of humor. And like I said, like, you know, you're not wrong about Carrie Fisher not being very funny, but I don't think that they meant for her to be. I think she is a straight man, so like that's by design to some level. But then again, like, I guess the straight man can be funny in how they react to the humor. So maybe there is some problem there also. And I think it's just like the dialogue a lot of times in this movie is just like really like I guess I would just, this is one of those things where I would have to sit by you and watch it with you and then and like pause it and say like, okay, so why didn't you find this funny? Like, there's one part pretty early in the movie where Art is in the house with Ray and Carol explaining that the neighbors, like, their last house burned to the ground, and he's like eating everything in the house, and Carol walks by with a bowl of dog food, and he reaches in it and eats some of the dog food, and then like you see his face as he's like starting to spit it out, and it's like it's not heavily focusing on that. He's eaten like 3 plates during this whole scene, and then he reaches for the dog food. Like, it's little things like that. Like, I guess.
See, I didn't even notice that. I feel like I'm just a bad reviewer when I don't pick up on stuff like that, because that does sound pretty funny, but I didn't even notice it.
Yeah, and it could be that, like, because that was kind of a subtle thing. Like, it wasn't in your face with it. But I don't know. Like, you said like your first time you laughed was when Art fell or was climbing the pole, and that is like an hour into the movie. So like, it's one of those things. Like, I wonder if it's just like your sense of humor just isn't in sync with this, and that's definitely a thing a lot of times. Like, I could find a movie that a lot of people think is really good, and I wouldn't be able to say it's a bad movie. I would just say like it's just not my kind of movie, and that I wonder if that's maybe what's going on here.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't really have anything to say about this that's like it's a bad movie or does this poorly. I'm just kind of like, yeah, it's just a thing that exists that's supposed to make me laugh and just straight doesn't. Mm-hmm. And it's not like I found any of the jokes fell flat. I knew exactly why they were supposed to be funny. It just didn't get me. I was just bored with it, I guess. And that's okay. Probably the worst thing you could say about a comedy, to be honest.
Yeah. What is your favorite comedy movie?
Fuck. Probably Kung Pao Enter the Fist.
Okay, and that is a very different kind of comedy than this.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. This is a weird movie for me to talk about because I'm just like, when I think about, like, this is the kind of movie where if someone described it to me, I bet I would be laughing hysterically.
Mm-hmm.
But watching it on its own just didn't do anything for me.
Did you watch it by yourself?
Yeah, for the first half, and then Haley was watching it with me for the second half, and she was laughing more than I was, and like then it starts getting really weird towards the very end once like it's revealed that they've been right about the neighbors the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
Once that happened, she's like, "What is this movie? I don't understand what's going on."
Yeah.
So I don't know.
And I think that's another thing I like about it so much is that, like, it completely throws you for a loop because throughout, like, the first 2/3 of the movie, you think that it's going to be, like, a lesson in don't be a xenophobic jerk, like, and that's what our main characters are being. Like, you know, you've got these neighbors. I guess we could explain the plot because there's probably some people who are really confused. So Tom Hanks plays a normal guy who living in the suburbs, and he has just had a nervous breakdown, and so he's going to take some time off from work, and he's got some new neighbors that nobody in the neighborhood knows. They all just keep to themselves, and his other neighbor, Art, is convincing him that they should go and, like, get to know these neighbors kind of, and his neighbor, Art, thinks that they're, like, Satanists or something, and that they're, like, gatekeepers from hell, and then like one thing leads to another, and then they think that these neighbors killed their other neighbor, and then by the end of the movie, spoilers, you find out they actually are murderers, but they didn't murder the people or the person that they thought that they had murdered. So I think that twist is just so, like, it comes out of nowhere, but also I think it's just really brilliant because you would think that watching the first 2/3 of the movie, you think it's going to be like, shame on you if you are one of these people who, like when he does that big speech where he's like yelling at Art saying like, we're the criminals, we're the insane people. And it's like, if you're one of these people, then you should feel bad because like you're, you know, being really hostile and abusive towards these people from another country who are just trying to come here and make a better life. And then it's like, nope, just kidding. They really are bad guys. And I don't know if that's like a bad message or if that's just like rule of comedy. Like comedy is the unexpected. And we talked about that last week. So I don't know if this is just the rule of comedy at its finest or if this is just like really going to a dark place where it's like, just kidding. These people really are bad. And like these guys who are being xenophobic the whole time are jerks. I'm not really sure. And at the same time,
I honestly don't think...
Go ahead.
For me, I don't think it's smart enough to be either of those things.
Okay.
Like, that, I don't really have an opinion on the thing coming out of left field, because when it happens, I was like, okay, that's actually kind of interesting. I don't know if they really thought it through that much, though. I think
say
they maybe did. Okay.
I feel like they... Because I don't think that this is a movie that's just like... It's not... Joe... He's done... Maybe... Did you like the Gremlins?
Never seen Gremlins.
Hello? Gremlins,
I've never
the
seen
movie from the
Gremlins.
80s. Did you like that movie?
I've
Okay, sorry, I couldn't hear you. Okay, see, I was just one because I feel like he's kind of got a big resume, but Gremlins may be like the biggest thing that he's done. And I've seen both of the Gremlins movies once, and I didn't really find, I didn't think much of them when I watched them. So I don't know if this is one of those things where he's like done a couple. He did Inner Space with Martin Short. He has done like some stuff that. I guess he hasn't done that much that I for some reason I thought he's done like a whole lot more stuff, but I feel like this is one of those movies that I don't think that it's necessarily like a lazy or a hack movie. I think that they did put some thought into it maybe, but I don't know. I could be wrong.
Yeah, I don't know. The more I think about it, like, especially with Tom Hanks' whole speech and then immediately contradicting that, they probably did think about it, and I'm probably just not giving it enough credit. I don't know, man. It didn't work for me. I don't really know what I can say about it. It's like, if you describe something, it's like, this is pretty funny and clever, I'll be like, yes, that is funny and clever. I still didn't find it funny nor clever when I was watching it on the screen, and that's just kind of, I don't know, I was just bored by this movie, which is unfortunate because, I don't know, Tom Hanks, Carrie Fisher, that was kind of exciting.
Yeah.
I haven't seen nearly enough of Carrie Fisher's movies.
Right, and, like, this is one that, growing up, I don't even think that, because like I said, I don't remember a time when I hadn't seen this movie. I don't think that I don't think I understood when I was a kid that this was also the actress who played Princess Leia. I think I was maybe like 8 or 9 before that really clicked with me, where I was like, oh, this is the same woman. Like, that just didn't, I guess because she has a different haircut here, so I was just thinking like, well, that's just got to be a different person. And it is different than what she was doing in Star Wars. And like you said, like, I wish I could see more of her movies. But this is one that I don't feel like a lot of people have heard of. And maybe I'm giving it too much credit. I think it's just, maybe part of it is I don't watch a lot of comedy movies. My other favorite comedy movie is Clue. And so, like, and that's even different than this. I feel like this and Clue are very different movies. But I'm looking at, like, the screenwriter is Dana Olson, and he hasn't done a whole lot that I'm really interested in. Like, he did George of the Jungle with Brendan Fraser, and he did the Inspector Gadget movie with what's his face, Ferris Bueller.
Matthew Broderick. Yeah, Matthew Broderick.
And so, like, I don't know, those are not movies that are very highly thought of either. But this is one, it's not even that it's, like, poorly received. I think it's just, other than you, like, I mean, I've never really heard a lot of people give it low praise. I've just mostly heard people say they've never heard of it before. There have been 2 separate occasions where I was trying to recommend this to somebody, and they thought that I was talking about the Tom Hanks movie Money Pit. And so, like, I feel like this is one that just kind of flew under the radar, but it's interesting that you didn't like it. I feel like it's almost like we're at a stalemate where you just didn't like it, but you can't really explain why, and I like it, but can't really explain why. I think that a lot of the character dynamics are really fun, because you've got Tom Hanks starting to play the straight man. And I guess this has something in common with Bob's Burgers, and I know you don't watch a lot of Bob's Burgers, or you haven't last time I talked to you about it, but I feel like Tom Hanks' character here kind of has a lot in common with Bob Belcher from Bob's Burgers, where both of them can simultaneously be the most sane man in the room and also, like, on a dime, become the most insane man in the room. Like, there are numerous episodes of Bob's Burgers where Bob is trying to hold everything together and everyone else around him is just completely bonkers. And then there are episodes where Bob is talking to a pickle and the pickle is talking back to him and he goes insane and is like seriously considering murdering a man across the street. So, like, and I like Bob's Burgers a lot also. So, like, I feel like these movies are kind of similar, where Tom Hanks starts off like he doesn't want to entertain the idea that these people are serial killers. He just wants everything to be normal. And then he slowly gets roped into this conspiracy theory, and he's, like, getting seriously stressed out about it. So I feel like there's some interesting character work there for Tom Hanks to be playing with.
Yeah, that's fair. I don't know. It's one of those things, like, you ever just watch something and feel like you have no idea what happened in it?
Yeah.
Like, you sat there and you watched the whole movie, and then you just kind of come out and, like, what was that movie about?
Mm-hmm.
I kind of feel like I had that response. Like, if I wasn't doing this review, I think I would have just gone the rest of my life and never thought about this movie again.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the reason that not a lot of people have heard about it is because I feel like it's just a very kind of forgettable film. And I think that's probably the reason that it's not remembered. It's not that it does anything quote unquote wrong. It's just not got anything that's, like, super interesting. It's kind of, sort of, a little bit of a horror comedy, I guess.
Yeah, I would call it that. And I guess this is one of those agree to disagree things, because I think this is very much like a quirky, almost, I don't want to quite call it a cult classic, because when you go to other cult classics, it's not as well loved as things like Rocky Horror Picture Show, or any cult classic that started off not very well liked and then got a huge following later. It's not like that, but I think that the people who do like it really love it. There have been, like, on the internet anyway, I've seen a lot of people who are just head over heels in love with this movie. And I think, like, if you compare this to some of Tom Hanks's other roles, like, he's had some huge roles in his life that are much more well known than this. Like, just off the top of my head, like Apollo 13. He's done like Captain Phillips, and then
Captain Sully?
Yeah, what was the one? What did he do? Captain Phillips? Am I thinking of something else?
Yeah, it's Captain Phillips, and then he did this. I think it's just called Sully, where he plays the guy that had to land the plane in the river.
Oh, okay, yeah. And then he did, like, years ago, he did Castaway, and it's like several of these movies were all kind of like a new start for him. Like, Castaway kind of like reignited his career, but even before that, like, Philadelphia was huge for him. Turner and Hooch is a big one that, like, everyone knows. He was in the only rom-com, well, one of the only rom-coms that I will deliberately watch multiple times is You've Got Mail, and, like, I really like him in that. I think he's really funny in that.
Not a dated movie at all.
Oh, definitely dated, but I still love it. But, like, so he's had some huge roles in his life, and, like, this is one that's, I won't say it's early in his career, because he was in that show Bosom Buddies, where he was playing I don't know if you've heard of it. It was him and another guy. In order to get this really low rent apartment, they have to pretend to be women, and so they're cross dressing as women to get a better rented apartment. And then, like, one of the other guy, not Tom Hanks, but the other guy, he has a crush on one of the women, and it's from the early 80s. So, like, he's been in some stuff that's, like, from earlier than this. And I feel like
Well, I mean, Big came out the year before this. I was just looking that up.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And Big is a huge movie in Tom Hanks' career.
Yeah, and I actually haven't seen all of Big. I want to say I haven't seen any of Big in a really long time. I don't remember the last time I saw any of it, but it's been a long time.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy that, like, Hanks has been in all these things, and then The Burbs is just like this really, I feel like it could have been played by anybody. I don't feel like it's like a breakout role for Tom Hanks or anything like that. It's such a B movie with just two big actors in it. And I think that's the only thing of note for me.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, Tom Hanks and Carrie Fisher.
Mm-hmm. I wouldn't say that it could be played by anybody. I think that a lot of the nuances, I don't want to say nuances, I think a lot of his performance here is stuff that he could do really well, and I don't think anyone else could do as well as him. Like, there are moments where he's starting to lose his mind here, and he's freaking out about things, and I'm like, only Tom Hanks could do that. Like, when he's arguing with Carrie Fisher, and he's, like, grabbing his shirt and saying, like, fine, I'll go get a tan, and he's like, what am I supposed to do, get a tan in my pajamas? And then he's, like, yelling at his son, saying, like, your mother and I are trying to have a conversation. Like, all of that is, like, I don't think any other actor from this time period could have done it as well as him. And then, like, that speech at the end where he's yelling at his neighbor saying, we're the criminals, we're insane. I think that is perfectly delivered by Hanks. And I think it's a very, like, the slow burn progression of he doesn't believe that his neighbors are up to anything. It's like what Ricky Butler said, where he said, he doesn't want to believe that his neighbors are up to anything weird, because if they are, then he would have to deal with it. I think that that's really well done by him. And it's like, it's progressive. It's not a light switch moment where he goes from, like, everything's fine to, like, staring at them with binoculars from across the street. Like, it kind of progresses at a nice pace, I think.
That's fair. I don't know what it is. It's just, it just doesn't impress me on any level.
Let me ask you, well, you've watched some Star Trek, right?
Yeah.
Did you see the Next Generation episode? I think it was the first episode that introduced Data's creator and lore. The kid in that episode, the one who had pulled some prank on his brother, and his brother wound up getting put in the infirmary for something because of the older brother. The older brother is the son in this movie, Tom Hanks' son.
Okay.
I thought that was kind of interesting. And then Rick Dukeman, he's Art. He was in the movie Groundhog Day, which I just watched earlier this year for the first time. He's one of the natives of Pennsylvania.
That's cool. I mean, it's got a lot of, like, 80s connections then, which is kind of neat.
For the longest time, this was the only Bruce Dern movie I had ever seen. He was in a John Wayne movie called, it was either Support Your Local Sheriff or Support Your Local Gunfighter, and that was a young Bruce Dern. And then he was also in The Hateful Eight, which I just recently watched, like, less than a year ago for the first time. And I think Bruce Dern is a really good actor. Here, he's kind of playing a one-note character, but I think he has some really funny moments that are kind of like a lot like Tom Hanks. A lot of people will never know about them because people are more familiar with some of his other roles. Like I really liked his rant against the dog at the beginning of the movie, and just the juxtaposition of him like being married to this woman who seems completely opposite of him. Like, she is very calm and like will never raise her voice in the whole movie, and then he's just like 100% hot tempered all the time. I thought that was kind of funny.
Yeah, it was all right. I don't know. I just it had no effect on me. I have no, like, that Futurama joke with the neutrals. And the dude's like, I have no strong feelings one way or the other.
Yeah, so that's you. Okay.
That's just me with this whole movie. I'm like, yes, it exists. And that's unfortunate. I wish I could say something more, but I really don't have anything on this.
I'm really curious what other people think of this, because like I said last week, this is my favorite movie, and like, I don't have a lot of comedy movies that I go to that often. For me, like, I like Kung Pao, I like this, I like Clue, and like those are three very different movies. Like, Clue is a very tightly plotted movie, but at the same time, like, when you take in all three of the endings, there's also numerous plot holes in it. This is nothing like that. It's nothing like Kung Pao. Some other comedy movies that I like, So I Married an Axe Murderer with Mike Myers. I like I don't know, like, I don't watch a lot of comedy movies, so like maybe I've just set the bar so low for myself. But I think it's just really quirky and it's unexpected. Like, if you are familiar with Tom Hanks's like filmography, and then you suddenly discover this thing from 1989, like, it's really unexpected in that way. And also, I think just like a lot of the plot is just really like you don't see it coming, or maybe you do. I don't know. Like,
no, that's definitely fair. I could not predict where this movie was going at any point. Like, I was legit buying into the occult stuff. I thought that like the doctor was going to be like fucking Dr. Frankenstein or some shit. I had no idea what was coming.
Yeah.
So I don't know, like, the possibility of that maybe entertained me a lot more than the reveal we get where he's like a serial killer or whatever.
Yeah.
I was like really hoping that like they'd get down to the basement and there'd be like, the movie would take like a fucking left turn and there'd be like fucking Island of Dr. Moreau kind of creatures or some shit down there.
That would definitely be unexpected. Yeah.
Yeah.
What did you think of the scene when they're eating with the Klopeks for the first time, and like Bruce Dern keeps flipping that painting over, and then finally the doctor comes and like the doctor, he says, I was just telling my nephew that like it's going to be such a shame to leave, and then Bruce Dern says who? Or like he's just, Bruce Dern is being like a total jerk the whole time. I don't know. I thought that was kind of funny, and there's another like subtle thing there, kind of like the dog food thing, where when the doctor, he gets out some sugar substitute, but everyone's looking at him like he's just busted out some cocaine. And after everyone's been villainizing him this entire movie, like they're all probably thinking it's cocaine. And then he says sugar substitute, and Tom Hanks covers his cup really quickly. And it's like he's not saying anything, but he's still thinking that it's something really suspect. So I don't know. I thought that was another one of those like kind of subtle things, like you might not pick up on it for several times.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. I will say, like, one of the funnier scenes for me was when they're in the house and they're like, the Hans comes through and he's like, sardine. Like, that, like, the very particular acquired taste thing is the thing he just serves, sardines and pretzels. Like, that was pretty funny, and Tom Hanks putting a sardine on a pretzel and just choking the thing down.
Yeah.
Like, it got me a little bit, but again, like, you're laughing harder at me describing it than I laughed when I saw it.
Yeah, and it could be that because I've seen it so many times and I know exactly what scene you're talking about, it's possible someone listening to this will be like, I don't get it. I don't see what's... But, like, yeah, that listening to that, I'm remembering, like, Tom Hanks spending, like, a minute trying to get the sardine to stay on the pretzel, and then, like, he looks at his wife, and his wife, like, nods at him, like, yeah, go ahead and eat it, even though she didn't eat it. And then, like, he does it, and then it's, like, a minute later, when they're all talking about something, he starts, like, throwing up in the newspaper because he's, like, I don't know, I thought that was a funny scene. And it's one of those, like, it's a perfect, awkward scene where it's like, if you're like me, you don't like dealing with people at all. And it's like going to meet your neighbors who have been your neighbors for, like, 5 months or whatever, and you already, like, it's to the point where it's going to be awkward when you go and introduce yourself, but then you're introducing yourself and, like, it's just a whole lot of, like, everyone staring at each other, and the most interesting part of the conversation is, it sure was damp today. Like, that is my nightmare, and so watching that be turned into, like, a comedy scene...
That is my nightmare.
Yeah. And like, the old man, he is actually, for a long time, he was my profile picture on Facebook or Twitter.
I remember that now. Oh, that's
he's
what
still
I recognized him from.
Yeah, and he is like staring daggers at Tom Hanks throughout the entire scene because he thinks that Tom Hanks has slipped a note under their door that actually Bruce Dern and Rick Dukeman did earlier. And, like, so that's another, I think it's really funny, just the way he just will, like, unblinkingly, he's just staring at Tom Hanks while Tom Hanks is, like, trying to pretend like he's not noticing. So I think there's a lot of, like, weird humor there, too.
Yeah, and that guy's got, like, a very, very good resting bitch face, too.
Yes, he does.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also like that,
know.
like each of the brothers, like, if you don't know the ending of this movie, each of the brothers acts so weird in their own way, except for the doctor, where it's like, okay, he's acting weird, so maybe there is something going on. Like Hans is just a nervous wreck the entire time, and he's the nephew, and then, like, Uncle Reuben is just evil, like he's, you know, like you said, resting bitch face, and then it's like, the doctor comes in and he's just, like, super friendly, and he's like, you know, oh, like, he comes in and shakes hands with Tom Hanks, and then there's, like, Tom Hanks pulls his hand up and it's, like, covered in what he thinks is blood, and then it cuts to a new scene, and he said, I must apologize about the paint, and he said, I was just touching up on one of my paintings, and it's like, you find out he's just, like, a surgeon, and he's, like, really nice and polite, and if you've ever watched the Wonder Woman TV show, the guy who played Dr. Klopek in this, he was in the first episode of the Linda Carter Wonder Woman show. He was a spy.
Yeah, I recognized him from... I've seen him in a couple other things here and there. He usually plays, like, more of a kindly old man. It was kind of fun to see him play, like, kind of evil genius thing.
He was either in Laugh-In or... Hee-Haw, and I don't remember which one, because I never watched either of those shows. I'm looking him up right now. Oh, no, that's not the guy. Oh, man, I don't remember the actor's name. Dingy. Oh, well. I just typed in Henrik Ibsen, and that's a playwright from the 1800s, so that's not the guy I was thinking of.
I mean, maybe. You don't know. Maybe he lived, like, a really, really, really long time and started getting into screenwriting.
His name is Henry Gibson. That's slightly different. Okay. Yeah, he was in Laugh-In. That was the show I was thinking of.
Okay.
Um,
Go ahead.
well, we almost hit 45 minutes, so that was pretty good. What did you think of Corey Feldman?
He is by far the most awkward performance in this to
Really?
me.
Okay, wow.
I don't know, it's just like, pizza dude's coming! This is how young people talk! Bruh!
Yeah.
Like, it just, it's so cringy to me. Like, I don't know, to be fair, I was too young, or I wasn't born yet in 89. I don't understand the youth of the 80s, the late 80s. I feel like that's just a really bad representation of the youth of the late 80s, though.
That is entirely fair. I think, and sometimes I think when I have a movie that I really love, it's really hard for me to hear criticisms of it because I don't want to believe that it has any flaws. I've said before that this movie mostly is a timeless movie, and like you could put the plot of this movie in any time period, and it more or less could happen in the same way, except for all the teenagers in it. Like, at one point, Ricky Butler's girlfriend is wearing this, I don't even know how to describe her jacket. It's like the multicolored rainbow jacket that looks like it only existed in the 80s. Like,
well, and he's got, like, the leather jacket with all the metal studs in it in that scene, doesn't he?
Yeah, I think he does.
Yeah.
And so, like, yeah, the teenagers in this movie, and I want to say that when he's like, oh, the pizza dude's coming, and they're all like, yeah, rock on, I think that is at its height at that point in the movie, when he's hanging out with his friends, because when he's with the other adults in the movie, that's toned down quite a bit more, I think.
Yeah. I had the hardest time placing him as, like, what his age was supposed to be, and, like, if he was living with his parents, or if he was, like, a young homeowner.
I think
I had the hardest time placing that because we never see his parents.
Right. I could be wrong. I feel like didn't he at one point when he was like he's talking to Rumsfeld and he says something and then Rumsfeld says, "Hey, paint your house." But didn't he say paint your parents' house or did he just say paint your house?
I think he just straight says paint your house,
Okay.
and that, and we see him drinking a beer with the dude earlier in the movie, and I'm like,
Yeah. And
so
if I'm not,
is this supposed to be like this guy's irresponsible and gives teenagers beer?
right.
Or is it supposed to be that this is like a really young homeowner in the neighborhood?
I'm trying to think of in the late 80s, wasn't the drinking age 19?
Depends on
The state.
which state, because like Ohio for the longest time had a drinking age of 18.
Okay.
So that could be it.
Yeah, and this I do think this has a really cool opening shot and ending shot in the movie where it starts off with the Universal Studios logo, which is just planet Earth with the word Universal Studios above it. Then Universal Studios goes away and it just zooms in to whatever city this is in. I think they call it Hinkley Hills, and I've watched this movie probably 100 times, and I still can't quite place what state it's in. It might be Idaho, maybe? I don't know. Like, somewhere in middle America. And I think, and you know more about, like, CGI and how stuff like that is done. I don't know how this shot was done in 1989. Like, where they suddenly went from a shot of planet Earth as the beginning, and then, like, actually in the neighborhood by the end of that shot. And it looks really seamless to me.
Oh, it's just a fade.
Okay, yeah.
It's just an animated fade. They made a model of the Earth, and then they did a quick pass on that, and then they made a model of like the states and did a quick pass on that. Made a model of the neighborhood, did a quick pass on that, and then just got a crane shot. That'd be my best guess. It's not that complicated. It's just a crossfade.
Okay, and they did something kind of like that in Beetlejuice, I think, where it's like, you think that you're going over the actual town, and then you see that it's actually the model that Adam made. I don't know if you've seen Beetlejuice, but they do.
Yeah.
So that, I don't know, that kind of thing always impresses me because I know nothing about CGI and that kind of movie making. But yeah.
See, I actually wasn't very impressed because I just thought that the Universal logo looked really bad because they wanted to do this kind of transition.
Okay.
And just clearly the amount of money they could put into, or not even the money, the amount of or the level of the technology just didn't let them render a very realistic looking Earth. I thought it looked kind of crummy. I could probably knock that out in about 10 minutes.
Well, now, yeah.
Yeah, now. It's just that's the way things are. I don't know.
But yeah, getting back to Ricky, like I feel like he's probably like 19, maybe 20. Like he's still living at home with his parents, but his parents are somewhere. I get the feeling this is sometime during the summer, and like you've got an explanation for like where all of the adults are for the most part. Like Carrie Fisher and Rumsfeld's wife, they're gone most of the movie, probably because they have jobs. Tom Hanks, it's said that he's taking some time off from work. And then Art, we're never really told what he does. My sister has this theory that he's actually a school teacher, and this is the summertime, and so he's not doing anything, because no one ever asks him why isn't he at work. They only ask why Ray isn't at work. And then Rumsfeld is retired. But like Ricky, no one really says anything to him either. And I get the feeling that like his parents are just really wealthy, and they're like going on vacation somewhere. And it's like, you can watch the house, and your one job is to paint the house. And I don't even think he does that.
You know, what cracked me up about him painting the house is, like, you look at the posts at different points, they have, like, red and blue paint just smeared on them. It's not even like the post is painted red or blue. It's just got a smear of red or blue paint. I'm like, the fuck's he doing?
Yeah, he must not. He must not have that much interest in it. Well, I think what amuses me about him is that he's interested in what's going on, but he's not. He's an observer, and he's mostly just like amused by all of this going on. He's not actually that worried about his neighbors being like serial killers or whatever. He's just like mildly amused by it, and he's enjoying it as much as I am. I think that's why I liked it as much as I did.
I think that's fair.
I did like the kind of father-son dynamic between him and Tom Hanks' character. Like, there's a few good moments, like when they break into Walter's house because they think that they have no idea where Walter is, and his dog is outside, and he's the kind of guy who would take his dog with him everywhere, so they're worried about Walter. And then they break into the house, and that was actually one of Bruce Dern's funnier moments, where when he opens the door, and they're like, "How did you get in here?" And he just pulls up the window like he had one of those, like, I don't know what you call it, it's a suction cup, and then you cut the window, and then like he used that to break in, and he just says, "A soldier's way saves the day." I thought that was funny. But then like when Ricky is like saying like, well, maybe he fell in the bathtub, and there's like blood and guts everywhere, and like Tom Hanks just takes whatever he's holding and says, "Just don't touch anything." Like, I think there's some really good surrogate father moments there, which is weird because Tom Hanks has an actual son in this movie that you barely see him interact with. But I did like their interactions in this movie.
Yeah, that's fair. I guess one thing for me that I think is just weird and not justifiable by almost any stretch of the imagination is I would accept Carrie Fisher's whole "let's just go talk to them and be neighborly" thing literally at any other point in the movie before they find a bone.
Mm-hmm.
That is kind of unacceptably weird.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, it's obviously a bone.
A human.
She doesn't even address that it's, like, clearly from something that was living. Most likely a human because of the shape.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, as
like that just
as Art said, like, what do you think, this came off a chicken or something? Like, and I don't even know if they told her about it. Like, because
he's holding it in the room that she's in.
Oh, is he?
And,
okay.
Like, yeah, he's holding it, and she says we're going to go over there, and he like holds up the bone, and she's like, "No, we're going to go over there and talk." I'm like, really?
Uh-huh. And it's one of the I didn't realize that she knew about the bone, because they were outside screaming about it, and then the neighbor threw over the note, and then Ray goes running, and then she opens the door and accidentally slams it in his face. And I guess maybe she was opening the door because she heard them screaming, but then I never picked up on her noticing the bone, because I never, and that's one of those things. It's kind of like the 1989 Batman movie, where I grew up watching that also, And then it wasn't until I was like in my like early 20s before I heard other people say that movie has tons of problems. Like the characters do things that make absolutely no sense. And once I started hearing that, I couldn't unsee it. And it's the same thing here where like I've never noticed that before. And that is a huge character problem. Like there are tons of moments where before the Klopeks call the police, there are tons of moments where any of the other characters could have called the police and like could have resolved a lot of plot issues. Like whenever they were saying like, hey, Walter's missing, where is he? They could have just called the police then. And like, I think someone suggested that and Art sarcastically said, oh, good plan. And I guess by that point they had already broken into the house. So they would have had to explain why they were in his house. But they definitely should have at least said, let's call the police and ask why there's a human bone in our backyard. And I never really thought of that before.
Yeah, that's just the weirdest thing for me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I find the whole thing very confusing, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
I don't...
Well, this has been a very weird, like a very unusual Geeky Gentleman, because I was not expecting this reaction. I don't know what I was expecting, because like this is one of those things I felt like I had to just do my duty and like just share my favorite movie with everyone. I was not expecting just like all across the board like a mediocre response. So like that's very interesting, and I'm curious. Anyone who's listening, if you've seen it, let us know what you think, because I'm really curious what other people think of this. If everyone else thinks it's just an okay movie and that's why it's so like no one's ever talks about it, or if it's just like an unheard of gem, because I've always thought it was just like an unheard of gem.
That's fair. All right. Let's go ahead and go on to ratings then.
Okay, I'm hoping you'll go first.
Go first.
Oh, you want me to go first?
Oh, you want me to go? No, I'll go first.
Okay.
I'll go first. I guess I'll give this 2.5 out of 5 femurs that you accidentally play fetch with a dog with.
Okay, that's higher than I was.
It's literally just average. It's not like it's bad. It's just it exists for me.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, I mean, to hear you talk about it, I was thinking you were going to go with like 1, so that is higher than what I was expecting. I would go with, well, I'm going to go with 5, even though like you pointed out some really good points of like they should, like that is a legitimate character problem, that they find a human bone in the backyard. It is undeniably a human bone, and then they choose to just not call the police. Like that's a character problem, and like it's one of those things that like it's just lazy writing, basically. Like if the two guys had just not shown her the bone, that also would have been lazy writing, but at least it would have made sense why she was like, let's just go over there and talk to them. But I would think that I'm going to still go with 5, unless like I watched it with somebody who just like point by point was like, this is why this movie sucks, and like they kind of did a Batman 89 thing on it where like I came to realize like, oh, this is a lot more problematic than I realized. So until then, I'm going to give it 5 chainsaws out of 5. The scene with the chainsaw where they're tying him up to the grill. So I would give it 5 out of 5 chainsaws.
All right. Well, Steve gave me a text message of what we'll be talking about next time. Oh, shit. Almost dropped my phone. That's always a good thing to do. So next time we'll be talking about, do superheroes need secret identities in modern stories?
Oh, interesting. I'm excited about that.
Yeah, sounds good. Well, I'm trying to think if we want to just shoot the shit about something else randomly for like 10 to 15 minutes. And then conclude the episode. So, like, because I don't want to just sit here and just talk shit about the movie, but I also don't want to give people a shorter episode than they're used to.
Have you seen the movie Planet Terror from Robert Rodriguez?
Yes, I love Planet Terror.
One of the first patients, one of the first people who like goes to the hospital in that movie, the one who like sticks out his tongue, and where Josh Brolin says like you these wounds are like 3 days old or something like that. He was in this movie, I believe. He was Ricky Butler's friend who was wearing the Ramones t-shirt or something.
Wow, that is so obscure.
Yeah, I know, like, because I've been so obsessed with this movie before that I would go on Internet Movie Database and like just look up everyone in it, and it's like, or maybe I was looking up characters from Planet Terror because I I've watched that like within the past 2 years and was looking up some of the actors in that, and I somehow came across that he was in the Burbs, and this was like probably one of his first movies, maybe. And it's not like that guy's had a huge career, but I thought that was kind of interesting.
No, it's fair. It's fair. I don't know, other stuff we can talk about. Just like I feel bad just kind of throwing that at you without having anything planned. You know, I think of another movie that kind of does a somewhat similar thing in just setting a story in the suburbs, and it's kind of like a dark comedy, is The Chum Scrubber.
Huh.
And I think you might enjoy that. It follows more like teenagers and stuff, and it's about kind of like mid to late 2000s teenagers, so it's really our generation.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like the subtitle on the thing is Meet Generation RX, because it's all about like kids being prescribed a bunch of different things.
Yeah.
So I don't know, that might be worth your time to check out and just see if you liked this. I'm sure you might get a kick out of that because it's got kind of darker humor and stuff in it too.
It's got this guy, and I could swear I've seen him in something before. The Chum Scrubber, Justin Chatwin. He looks like he belongs in the band Green Day, and I know I've seen him in something. But it's also got Jamie Bell, who has been in a couple of. Well, he's been in that Fantastic Four movie. And then he was also in the movie Push. Or no, not Push. Jumper. Did you ever see Jumper?
Yeah, I saw Jumper forever ago.
Oh, this Justin Chatwin guy, he was Goku in Dragon Ball Evolution.
Oh my god, wow.
I have not seen Dragon Ball Evolution, though. I one time had the opportunity to buy it for $1. I asked some friends of mine, should I buy it for $1? They all said no. So, like, if that shows you how bad people I know thought of this movie.
No, it's not a good movie. Oh, I know who he is in Jumper.
Yeah, he's and you know that's I don't know. Just if we're just gonna like kind of go in all different directions, that's a movie that I really wanted to love, and I think Hayden Christensen really ruined that movie for me. Like, up before I saw Jumper, I used to think, like, he may not be that bad in the Star Wars prequels. Like, it may just be that, like, everyone in the Star Wars prequels is doing their best, and it's just that those movies are garbage, and they're doing the best with what they were given. But then I really don't think that he was very good in Jumper either. Like, I think that's for the mid-2000s, I think that's an interesting premise for a movie. I know it's based on a book, but, like, you know, at the time, we didn't have a wide variety of superhero movies, and that one is really more of a supervillain movie than a superhero movie. But, like, I thought it was really interesting, and then, like, I don't think Hayden Christensen did a good job with it. And it's been over 10 years since I've seen it, so maybe I'm, like, talking out of my butt right now.
No, I've heard people say that they think Hayden Christensen's bad in Jumper too, and like I've been in discussions with people and they go, "Oh, Hayden Christensen just can't act." I'm like, no, it's really not him. It was George Lucas not being able to direct anybody, because Hayden Christensen can act. He was in Jumper and he was okay in that, and people always go, "Oh, well, Jumper sucked too and he was terrible." And I'm like, I mean, Jumper definitely was not a great movie or anything, and Hayden Christensen wasn't brilliant, but he wasn't, like, flat and awful and bad.
No.
He just easily got overshadowed by Samuel L. Jackson. Just, like, shamefully overshadowed by Samuel L. Jackson.
Which is easy to do. Like, you know, Samuel L., it's not that he chews scenery, but he's, like, really has a large presence.
He has such a presence. Yeah, he has a huge presence on the screen. It's kind of ridiculous. Like, you gotta really be acting your ass off to be on screen with Samuel L. Jackson, especially at this point. The man's got such a career behind him.
Yeah. He's been acting. Was Pulp Fiction one of his first roles, or was that just like a kind of middle thing for him? Because I feel like I think
that was like the thing that really made his career take off. But like, I think he'd been acting before.
I want to say I had heard that he was acting since '72. I want to say that he had been that he was involved with some of the civil rights stuff, and like, oh man, I hope I'm not wrong about that. I think his mom or his grandma like kind of talked him out of doing something that it would have ended up like he might have died. I heard something about that where it was like a really interesting thing that you don't hear about, where it was like he was probably in the late 60s, like he would have been involved with something that where it was like his mom or grandma convinced him not to do it, and then a lot of the people who did do it like ended up getting hurt or something like that.
Yeah. That's interesting. I'm just looking through Samuel Jackson's IMDb, and there's like I think the first movie he's in is called Sea of Love, and he's just credited as black guy.
That's great.
That's pretty funny. He was in The Exorcist 3. I didn't know that.
I didn't know there was an Exorcist 3.
Yeah, he's in a lot of stuff. Samuel Jackson's like been in so many movies because he'll just take really any role at this point. He doesn't care.
Honestly, he can afford to just not care. Like he could be in the worst performing movie of all time, and he would still be financially set for the rest of his life. Like, and I mean that's not a bad thing. Like he's made a career out of like he's been in some really good movies, and like some of these I haven't even seen, but like I've heard lots of people talk very nicely about like Goodfellas. I didn't know he was in that. And then he's been in movies that like nobody cares about, like Jumper.
You know what's a really fucking funny ass movie that he was in?
What?
It's Bernie Mac's last film, Soul Men.
Mm-hmm.
That is a great fucking movie. That movie is hysterical. I adore Soul Men.
Do what?
It is a great. I adore Soul Men. It is a great film. I highly recommend that one.
Oh, I need to check it out then.
Out of this episode, you get a recommendation for Soul Men of all things, because we're just jumping around, shooting the shit, talking about stuff.
And you know
what else is going on in the world?
Now that I think of it, I want to say I've only seen Bernie Mac in the first Transformers movie, which is a shame because like that should not be what you judge any.
Really, you never saw like the Ocean's movies?
I guess I saw the first Ocean's movie a long time ago.
Okay.
I know I saw part of it. I don't think I saw the whole movie. I think I saw it up to the end, but I didn't see the beginning of it. So I didn't. Was he one of the 11?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I didn't even remember that he was one of the 11. I vaguely remembered that. Well, I knew George Clooney was in it. I think I knew Brad Pitt was in it, and wasn't Matt Damon in it?
Yep.
Okay. So like those were the three I remembered, and like the last time I saw it would have been like 2002 maybe. So it's been
No, that's totally fair.
Mm-hmm.
I am legit getting somewhat interested in the new one that's coming out with Julia Roberts.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. I didn't like the idea of it, not because I'm like, oh, female Ocean's 11, that's bullshit. I'm just like, it just really feels like more of a gimmick than like anything they have an actual story for.
Right.
But I saw a trailer for that, and I'm like, I'm not saying it's going to be good, but it definitely has my interest now. I think the fact Anne Hathaway's in it.
Yeah,
right?
and she looks kind of funny.
I think seeing her being in it just it's gonna kind of be my headcanon for the Catwoman movie that we never got in the Christopher Nolan verse.
Yeah.
It'll depend on how she acts, but I don't know, that just kinda that comes to mind for me.
When I saw I saw of the trailer, I didn't watch the whole trailer. I couldn't tell if the Ocean's crew is going to be robbing Anne Hathaway or if she is in on it with them and she's like playing a role when James Coburn is interviewing her, because it looked like she's either like completely airheaded and ditzy when he's interviewing her and saying like, have you seen this woman before? She's a robber. And then she's like, huh, really? Or she's like playing dumb and she's like playing this guy and she's actually a spy working with the group. So I'm like, I'm kind of interested to see what her role in the movie will be. And I could just look into it and probably find out pretty easily. But I've never seen...
Or you could just wait and watch the movie.
Yeah, I could do that, yeah. And I may do it, I don't know. Probably not in theaters, but since I haven't seen any of the others, I don't know how interested I am in this one. But I am interested.
I mean, I don't think any of the Ocean's movies are great or anything.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're, like, the first one's kind of fun. The other two are just remakes of the first one, as far as I'm concerned.
Yes.
And then I've still never seen the original with Frank Sinatra.
I haven't either, and I don't think a lot of people have.
Yeah, it's weird. Oh well. I don't know, man.
Oh, and
We're
I should mention that I was talking about Samuel L. Jackson. He was one of the ushers at Martin Luther King Jr.'s funeral, and his oh man, who was it? I just had it a second ago. That he was involved with the Black Power movement, is what it says. Which I don't know if that's a specific movement or if
yeah, it'd be connected to the it's separate from the civil rights movement in particular.
Okay, and then it said when the group began buying guns, but before he could become involved with any significant armed confrontation, his mother sent him to Los Angeles after the FBI told her that he would die within a year if he remained with the Black Power movement. And then in 2018, he denied having ever been a part of the movement. But so that, depending on how true that is, like that was kind of interesting, I thought.
Interesting.
And that's when. Oh, go ahead.
No, I think we're just gonna go ahead and wrap up.
Alrighty. Well, sorry that
kinda...
this was like just a kind of mediocre movie for you. Because
I'm sorry I didn't enjoy it more. I'm sorry I didn't have more well thought out things to say. Usually when I don't know what to say about a thing, I'll look stuff up. But the way the week worked out for me, I didn't have time to do anything but watch it tonight.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. It's kind of just where I'm at.
Yeah, well, that's
all right.
fun.
That'll do it though. Everyone, thanks very much for watching. Until next time, I'm the Philosopher,
and I'm the Comics Kid 2099,
and we are your geeky gentlemen, and we will be discussing things.